Good morning, sisters and brothers.
Good morning.
We made it to the new year. Are you relieved? The Christmas season is almost over, and now we can take the decorations and the greens down and start fresh. Although there is a sense of relief, we are still running, aren't we? Most of the time, we're on overload. And I don't know about you, but my brain is tired. Spam phone calls, junk email, texts, the ever-ending news cycle, social media, podcasts, video games, television, traffic, burgeoning AI, and the constant hum of background noise. We work outside and inside the home, care for children, grandchildren, parents, pets, livestock, manage chronic illnesses, and sometimes terminal illness. Our attention and energy can be so scattered that we fall into bed exhausted each night and rise to a jarring alarm clock into another hectic day. It seems that our society is focused on monetizing our every waking moment. We're expected to constantly improve our performance to be better, whatever that means. We're running. So let's pause and take a deep breath and take some time with the Magi. We all know this story, and it's one, I think, of the most beautiful in the New Testament. It's one of the few times in the Gospels when Jesus is not speaking. He's simply existing for us. Mary and Joseph are not speaking. The wise men are not speaking. The only one speaking is Matthew, our narrator. And he's coming to us about 100 years after the events occurred, telling us the story that came down to him from the oral tradition. Now, Matthew tells us that the Magi carried, as we know, 3 gifts to Jesus: gold, frankincense, and myrrh, to pay tribute. Frankincense, a pungent incense, was used by priests in temple rites, foreshadowing that Jesus would become our high priest. Myrrh was an embalming ointment, which points to Jesus' journey to the cross and his burial and resurrection. For right now, we have a moment before we journey to the cross, and I'd like to stay in Bethlehem. The Greek word for magi is magoi, which means astrologer or magician. Now, these were educated men who looked up to the galaxies and thought they could predict the future. And they also interpreted dreams. Manger scenes predict 3 wise men and their camels, but there were probably more. We don't know how many more. Maybe there were 10, maybe there were 50, maybe 100. We have no way to know. But they probably traveled in a caravan along ancient Roman roads for safety because they carried gold. I don't even like to carry cash these days. I mean, how about you? There is safety in numbers, and their journey was long. Historians estimate they traveled between 500 and 1,000 miles with camels, maybe horses, all their gear, their provisions, and their gifts. Now, all Matthew tells us is they came from the east. Now, that could have been Babylon, which was 500 miles, or all the way to Persia, past the Arabian desert. That would have been 1,000 miles. So let's put it in perspective. New York is 500 miles due east of here, And Tampa, Florida is 1,000 miles south. That's a long way. The journey would have taken 4 to 8 weeks. They couldn't have traveled more than about 15 miles a day. Have you ever ridden a one-humped dromedary camel? I don't think it would be very comfortable. There were no Holiday Inns with clean sheets with a free breakfast buffet along the way, right? And after they rode for weeks, they finally stopped in Jerusalem to see King Herod. And Herod told them, "Here is your mission if you choose to accept it. I want you to go and search diligently for this child, whom I've heard is going to be the new king, the King of the Jews. And I want you to come back and tell me exactly where he is, so that I can go worship him." And the 3 kings, they'd never met Herod before, and they said, "Okay, we'll do that. That sounds good." Okay, so now we have the picture in our mind. We've got all the logistics. Well, so what? What does it all mean? How is that even possibly relevant for us today in 2026? Well, let me tell you a little bit about my journey here at St. Andrews to bring this forward for us. A few years back, I went through a dark period. I made some poor choices. I struggled with depression. And I was really angry at the world. And I decided that I was going to be the permanent captain of my ship, right? Who needed God? I was a wise woman. I had education. I could manage it. But God had other plans. So he decided to work through my best friend, Caroline Sigelkin, over there. Raise your hand. Yeah, there she is. So one afternoon after we'd gone shopping, Caroline casually said, "My church is going to start a knitting ministry. Maybe you'd like to come." Well, those of you who know me know that knitting is my obsession. Like, that's my life. So I was insatiably curious. Well, God reeled this wise woman in by using my knitting obsession to get my attention. And once I came through these doors, I was still wriggling on the hook and fighting like crazy until I finally gave up and surrendered to the love being offered to me. Love is a lot easier to accept if you're not kicking and screaming. So it started with the knitting ministry, and then one night we were visiting and she said, "I don't have time for you to take me home. Why don't you just come to choir practice with me?" And so I went to choir practice, and that happened. And from there, I played the flute in church one day, and I hit some wrong notes, and nobody laughed, and nobody judged. And then I went with Steve and the gang downtown and served a meal for the unhoused. And then Elaine asked me to help with coffee hour, so I did that. My husband started getting a little concerned. "Greg, you're sure doing a lot of church stuff." Well, how do you explain to somebody that your light has been turned on, back on, and that because of this love that you're getting, you want to choose a new life and happiness, and that the more you give to people and reach out to the strangers and the needy and people different than yourself, the more you're getting and the more brightly you glow and love others? That's the point of the Magi. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. This is a story about how God reaches us where we are. These were smart guys, right? They were looking at the stars and telling fortunes, interpreting dreams. Now, God could have approached them in any number of ways, right? He didn't browbeat them into submission any more than Caroline tried to guilt and shame me. No, God didn't swoop in on a giant golden throne with fireworks and a choir and thunderbolts. He didn't boom a judgmental invective or heap shame upon them. Nope. He sent the one thing that he knew would connect, that would pique their curiosity, the one thing he knew they could not resist: a bright, irresistible star in the western sky. God invited those astrologers and those Gentiles from far, far away into a relationship with Jesus in the most gentle way possible, by a star. Now that's even better than knitting. How did they respond? Well, they traveled for long, long weeks under that star with their smelly camels until they found Jesus. And they offered him their gifts. Do you think they knew when they knelt down to worship him that something incredible was happening? An epiphany, a light bulb moment of, wow, here's God embodied in a little child pouring out love for me. God cares enough about me, an outsider from far away, to lead me to him. The child, Jesus, made them absolute fools for God, because who doesn't love a baby? And in the blink of an eye, they were changed. They did not go back to Herod, did they? Because for a second time, God hit them where they were and came to them in a dream and warned them. And they didn't even question it. And they said, okay. And they avoided Herod and his evil intentions, and they went home by a different way. They protected the Holy Family. They were good stewards of the gift of love that Jesus gave to them. Today is Stewardship Sunday, and it's the day when we deliver our intentions for the coming year. But unlike the Magi, you didn't have to ride smelly camels hundreds of miles to deliver your gifts. But just like them, God manifests divinity and love to us, right, in the form of a child. A small one who invites you to open your heart to the unrelenting hugeness of his mercy and his love. Because no matter where you are, what you're struggling with, the touch of a baby, a child's laugh, will more than likely reach you. When we are willing to surrender our pride, our stress, our anger, our hurts, our worries, our aches, our pains, and our problems, Jesus fills us with grace and hope and joy. And when we finally open up to receive that love, that's our epiphany, that eureka moment. When we wonder if maybe we just don't have to be Facebook and Instagram perfect. If maybe it's safe to completely open up and let God love us for who we are, warts and all. If maybe it's time to explore what St. Andrew's or your home church has in store for you. But I haven't sung in years. I can't be in the choir. I'm not artistic enough for the altar guild. I could never lead a Bible study. Really? You? Not good enough for the one who loves you into being every moment of every day? But I'm way too busy to do anything at church. Too busy to pray? Too busy to bring a canned good and drop it in the blessing box? Really? You are not a pew warmer. You are so much more. You are his eyes, his hands, his mouth. And that, my friends, is our New Year's surprise. The cork popping off the champagne bottle or the grape juice, if that's how you roll. We don't need a New Year's revolution. We don't need a resolution because we have a revelation, an epiphany. God's light that streams through us as we glow and we light up the world with compassion, justice, and his irrepressible love. And then, my friends, everyone will know we are Christians by our love. Can I get an amen?